Hello and welcome back to my podcast. My name is Ladies, and in this podcast, I just share about my stories and life stories and just talk a little bit about everything. Today's very chill. I want to talk about my testimony and a little bit about my life. Those of you that don't know me or don't know my life story, I just want to sit back and talk about it with you guys because I feel like now I'm 32 years old now. I can look back at my life and I am able to see so much of God's goodness in my life and faithfulness, and now I'm able to look back and see, that's why I had to go through this and that. So wanted to share that. I don't know if maybe you relate to my stories or you understand that sometimes God calls you into his presence, into his beauty, let's say it like that. But in the journey, it doesn't feel like beauty, it doesn't feel like faithfulness, it doesn't feel like goodness. It feels very painful. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of destruction that happens along the way. But now I understand, and as I'm still going, obviously with my life, I understand that those things need to happen for a specific reason and purpose. And it does have to do a lot with your growth in life. Let's go back. Let's go back in time. I was born and raised in Cuba. I was 10 years old when I came to the States. So, born in Cuba, third world country, back in 92, very poor, even though God was really good to us. I mean, I say God because now I know that God was always with me, no matter when I accepted Christ. Now that I look back, I'm like, you were always with me, dude, from the beginning. Like, you were. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom and my dad were married for 11 years before they decided to part ways. So at the age of 6, I was already had divorced parents. It was very rough. I remember, because I have memories of that, and I remember that it was just rough seeing my parents separate. So the enemy was already destroying my family, right? He was destroying one of the most precious things that a little kid can have is just mom and dad together. So at the age of 6, my parents get divorced. My life changed completely. I was, went from living with my mom and my dad in an apartment in Cuba to going into my grandma's house. And in my grandma's house, everybody lived there. Because in Cuba, you build a house on top of a house. So it's like your grandparents lived there, and then the daughter and the son and everybody starts just building houses, and everybody lived there. All my cousins lived there, my aunts, everybody. So we went from, living with my mom and dad to obviously, going to live into my grandma's house. My grandparents were very poor. We were never like a family of money or anything like that. So I had great memories from there. My childhood was great in that sense because since I went to live with my grandparents, I lived with all my little cousins, which they were all boys because my girl cousins were all grown up already. So I was just hanging out with boys all the time. And I had a great childhood. I can't complain about that. My grandpa was one of the biggest influences in my life growing up. He taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how just to do about anything. He taught me how to fish. He taught me how to just get on climb a tree. He taught me a lot of things, and he was there for me. He was there for all of us, actually, all of my cousins. So my childhood was great. I cannot complain about that in that sense, in the sense of like being a child and, going out and living in the streets, in the sense of there was no danger like that or anything like that. You knew everybody, all the neighbors. So it was great. It's very different from what it is here because now that I have a kid, the way that I was raised when I was 5 without technology or anything like that is very different from my daughter now, right? So my parents get divorced, my mom's struggling, and I'm seeing all these things as I grow up. So I never had a Christian background. Matter of fact, all of my family believed in saints. We believed in God, as the main source, but we believed in saints. Like I'll mention like San Lázaro, La Virgen de la Caridad del Cobre, Santa Bárbara. I mean, all these saints that we believed. My grandma had an altar actually of La Virgen de la Caridad del Cobre. And every February and every December we had what is called like I don't know how to say it in English, like vísperas. Like we would have parties for the saints and put food out for the saints and all of that. So I grew up with that. I grew up praying to God and to all the saints. Actually, fun fact, my middle name is Lázara. So my name is Ladies Lázara because my dad made a promise to the saint San Lázaro, right? That if I was born and everything was, good with me, that he would make my middle name be Lázara. So my dad was a firm believer in that. Even though we never practiced witchcraft in my family, we never practiced witchcraft or we never practiced voodoo or any of that. It was just basically we believed in the saints. So all of my life I grew up with that. That was completely normal to me. I suffered a lot when I was a child because, like I said, my parents got divorced, and then my mom started in this new relationship with the person that I call dad today. My stepdad or my dad. He's raised me since I was 6-7 years old. So I'm very thankful for him because he has been that father figure that I believe, God was faithful enough to give me. He has mold my character and he has made me who I am today. So I'm very grateful for him and for God. But back in the day it wasn't like that. See, my stepdad was very young when he met my mom, and my mom was a divorced woman. The divorced 32-year-old woman, so she was my age, with a 6-year-old, right, in Cuba. So anyway, fast forward to that, my mom is with my stepdad. Things are rough. I'm only seeing my dad on the weekends. I see my dad with a different woman every day. My dad is an alcoholic. I loved my dad. My dad was amazing to me. My dad was everything to me. But unfortunately, he had this struggle. He had this addiction to alcohol, and that just made him crumble. So fast forward, I'm already like 8-9 years old. I think I was like 9. And my mom wins what is called El Bombo, which is like a lottery. She gets a visa and to come to the States. So she was already married to my stepdad. My mom had already had my sister Talia. She was like 9-10 months old. So anyway, we come to the States. And when we come here, we leave all our family in Cuba. We were the first ones actually to come to the States. We leave our family in Cuba. I'm 10 years old. My sister's 10 months old. We come here. We have nobody. Literally nobody. We get to the Miami airport, and it was just, we had nobody. So there was these churches that would help the immigrants when they came in. I don't remember exactly how it was, but I know they were like Christian churches. Send us to a hotel in Calle Ocho in Miami, and then we met these 2 elders, and that's when our life changed. So I remember they came in and they brought a bunch of candies and stuff and clothes, and they were from this church. That's the first time that we heard about Christ. They actually shared the gospel with us, and they told us, about God and Jesus Christ and how he died on the cross for our sins and all that. I was 10, I didn't understand much, but they gave me a Bible, and that was the first time I've ever touched a Bible in my life or seen a Bible in my life. So that was that. They were going to send us they gave us 3 options to either go to Pennsylvania, Virginia, or Oregon, I believe. But then, we ended up in Tampa by one of my parents' families or whatever. We ended up here in Tampa. So those 2 elders that I was telling you guys about, they actually lived in Tampa, and they became very close to us. They became our mentors. They became they were like my grandparents here. They helped us so much every weekend. They would take things like secondhand things to us, and it was just, they were so good to us. And every day they would talk about Jesus. They would talk about that. So one day I remember when we moved to our first apartment here in Tampa. My mom had her little altar with her little saints, and I had mine in my room, my bedroom, that I would pray to every day. And I remember one day they had a talk with us, and they told us, listen, the Lord says, God says not to make any idols for yourself, that he's a jealous God and that he's the only God. And in that moment, I felt like I was, what, like 10 or 11, but I understood. Like, I understood that there was a higher calling because of how I felt inside. I believed those words when they told me those words, I believed it. And my parents did too, because my parents were older, so they were more attached to, you know, the saints and the way that they were raised with that. Well, they told us, you need to get rid of it. There's only one God. There's only one way to life, to eternal life, and that's Jesus Christ. And we believed it, and I believed it. And they said, you got to get rid of it. So it didn't, I didn't really feel anything. I kind of felt guilty in the beginning because my grandma used to tell me that, oh, you have to respect those saints, because if not, you know, if you throw them away, you know, something bad can happen. I threw them away. My parents threw it away. And everything changed from there. So mind you, we threw everything away, and we believed that Jesus Christ was the only God, and we didn't make any more idols. But we never went to church, and I would read my Bible here and there, but I was 10 years old. You know, I didn't know much about it. I actually remember that when I first read the Bible, when I opened my Bible, I went straight to Revelation. And I started reading, and I freaked out. I was like, what is this? I don't want to know about this God who's, the earth is going to be destroyed, and these monsters and this Antichrist. I was 10, okay? And I read Revelations. That's my first, you know, book in the Bible. So I don't recommend that you read Revelation first when you start. But yeah, anyway, so fast forward. It was tough here. My parents had like each 3 jobs. I had to basically raise my sister. I was in this after school daycare with my sister, and I would spend hours without seeing my parents because, like I said, they had like 3 jobs. I had to clean and cook and just take care of my sisters. I matured very quickly. In other words, like I remember I stopped playing with dolls and stopped playing with toys because I had a lot of responsibility on me. I had to take care of my sister. I couldn't just, you know, do any of that. So I was exposed to a lot of things very early in my childhood. Like I was exposed to sexual things. I was exposed to you know, in school through like just, you know, having boyfriends at like an early, you know, a little nothing sexual, but like little boyfriends here and there, and I was just exposed. Obviously we're millennials, so we come from not having technology to be the first ones to experience technology, right? The technology and the non-technology life. So that started changing a lot of the ways that we, you know, had access to different things. I remember when we had MySpace. If y'all remember MySpace, that was like my hobby, to change my background into music and my top 10. And yeah, so and when I started here in school, I'm going everywhere, but when I started in school here, I didn't know any English, obviously, so I was bullied. Yes, I was bullied, but I was bullied because of my accent. I wasn't bullied because no one took my lunch, no one did any of that. I was just bullied because of my accent. But I learned quickly to you know, speak English, and I worked hard to get out of ESOL classes so I can be in like advanced English classes, and I worked hard. Through high school, through middle school, I got into fight because of getting into fights like that. I mean, not because I wanted to get into fights, it's just because, you know, people would try me, and then, you know, it would get to a point where I couldn't take it anymore, so I had to do what I had to do. And then from there, you know, middle school, I kind of got better when I was in 8th grade, and then I went to high school. I went to Lato High School, and that's when everything kind of, you know, high school is when you start like molding like your character and who you are and what you know and what you do, and it's just a lot of things. You know, I went through some relationships that kind of made me insecure, that hurt me. You know how it is when you're in your teenage years, you feel like the world is gonna turn upside down. By the age of 15, it was my freshman year in high school, my dad in Cuba passed away from a heart attack. He was only 48 years old, 49 years old. My dad was very young, and he died of a heart attack because he was an alcoholic. And that was very traumatic for me. I suffered. It was the day before my Quince pictures that he passed away, and on Mother's Day. So it was just very traumatic for me. So that marked me for a long time. It's, you know, it still does. Obviously, you never get over it when you lose someone you love. You never get over it. But that touched me. My dad passes away when I'm 15. You know, like I said, I'm still trying to figure things out in life. I remember in Leto there was a Christian group that would set up. They would set up in the lunchroom or like in the patio area, and I remember seeing that and that catching my attention. And I remember one time I sat down in the group and they were having like a prayer moment, but it was nothing like, it was never anything like that. I was still believing that there was only one God, and I would pray to God every day, especially when I had bad moments in my life. I would pray. I had different revelations, but it was never anything that I would be like, I would always say, no, I don't want to go to a church that's super religious. I'm not a religious person. I only believe in God, and that's it. I was just very ignorant. Anyway, fast forward real quick, because if not, I'm going to make this really long. So I'm 18 years old. I rebel. So it was always a very, I've always been very mature when it comes to making decisions and stuff like that. I was never like a crazy person in high school. My standards. I always had my standards. But I did rebel. I did rebel against my parents. When I was 18, I met Adrian when I was 17, and then when I was 18, I rebelled, and I felt like I had all the freedom in the world because I was an adult already, and I rebelled. And I left home, and at 18 years old, I left home. I couldn't graduate because I started missing school. I started missing my classes. So I was able to graduate, but I couldn't walk with my class for graduation. I actually had to go and take like a summer school or something like that to get my diploma because I couldn't walk. So that was very weird because, you know, in high school, you're always thinking about like your graduation, and you're always thinking about, you know, when you're going to walk and go to prom and do all that. And I didn't do any of it whatsoever. So my life was kind of shattered because those were dreams that I had and things that I wanted to do. I didn't go to college the first year after high school. I started working. Well, I was working since I was 15 already at a retail store, Forever 21. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Forever 21. I worked there from I was 15 till I was 19. But then let me tell you the story of how I met Christ. I'm just giving you a lot of background. I was very rebellious. I left home. I started living with Adrian, and I was just all over the place. I didn't talk to my parents. I didn't talk to my family. I was just like, goodbye, you know, I want to do what I want to do, and that's it. And then one day I passed by this dealership. Okay, I've been in the car business for a while now. I passed by this dealership. I was 18 years old, 19, something like that, and I see a car, a red Lexus that my boyfriend back then, Adrian, my husband now, had. I see a car that my husband now had. And I was like, oh my God, that's the same car that you have, same year, same color. It would be so cool if we get the same car and we have the same car, all right? So I believe today that that was God's like catch. That was like the bait for me to bite, because I go into this dealership. Mind you, I'm 19 years old. I have no credit. I work at a retail store. I mean, it's like I don't have anything. I don't even know how I was gonna buy a car. I go in there, I talk to the salesperson. I'm like, hey, I really like this car. He's doing the application. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not here to buy. Like, I don't have money. I don't have anything. So he looks at me like, you're wasting my time. And then all of a sudden, I don't know. I asked him. I was like, are you guys hiring? And then he's like, yeah, we actually are. We're looking for an assistant. And I was like, oh, where can I apply? So I applied. 2 weeks later, they called me. They said, okay, you can come for an interview. I went for my interview. I got the job, and this is when things get good. So I get this job, and then I start, and then I met this person that worked with me, and every day she will ask me, hey, you want to go to church with me? Every week. I'm like, no thank you, I don't go to church. I believe in God, but I'm not religious. She's like, okay, no problem. And then she kept going every week. Hey, you want to go to church with me? Hey, you want to go to church with me? And then I said, listen, I'm not a church person. Like, I'm not gonna go to church. It's just not gonna happen, you know? Anyway, after like 2 or 3 months, I remember that one time she's like, hey, listen, I know you don't like this, but I'm gonna ask you again, do you want to go to church with me? And I said, I remember I was so fed up, and I was like, she's not gonna leave me alone. So I said, you know what? I'll go to church. Fine, I'll go to church with you. Let's go. What do we meet? Oh, let's meet at the Starbucks right there. Let's just, meet in the morning, whatever. I was like, how should I dress? No, just come as you are. Come as you are. like, okay. So I go on Sunday. I take my husband with me. He wasn't my husband then yet, but I take him with me, and I take my sister. And I go into that church, and there's like 300-400 people in that church, and we sit there, and then this pastor is preaching. And the pastor is preaching, and I see my life just put out there, my whole life. And I'm like, literally he was talking about like parents getting divorced. He was talking about like childhood traumas. He was talking about when we leave the house at 18, when we rebel against our parents. I mean, he was telling me my whole freaking life. And I looked at this person that took me to church, and I was angry. I was like, how dare you tell this pastor about my life? Because I had shared with her some things about my life. How dare you do that? I get emotional every time because, wait a minute. She literally looked at me and laughed. And I was like, why are you laughing? Like, that's messed up. Like, you can't. She's like, you think I'm going to tell the pastor about you and he's going to preach about you to 400 people? No. And she goes, Mama, this is God speaking to you. And let me tell you, I felt just this overwhelming feeling of like, this is incredible. Like, there's no way this man is just telling me everything about my life. And when they called people to the altar to give their life to Christ, I felt in my spirit, I was just so overwhelmed. There were tears. Like, I was just overwhelmed, and I couldn't understand why. And they said, raise your hand if you want to come to the altar. We'll pray for you. So I raised my hand, and my husband, my boyfriend back in the day, Adrian, he was like, what are you doing? Like, that's so embarrassing. And I was like, I'm going up there. I'm giving my life to Christ today. He spoke to me. There's no other way. And I walk up there, and I say the prayer, and I give my life to Christ. And I cannot explain to you how overwhelming that moment was. Like, I literally felt that I was a new creation in Christ. He took so much burdens from me. He cleansed me, literally. I wanted to run to my parents and ask for forgiveness. I wanted to change my whole life for this Christ. Literally, completely. So my life changed. I was 19 years old. It was the 29th of 2011 when my life changed completely. I gave my life to this God, this wonderful God who loved me, who pursued me. And now, because I know the word and I believe what the word says, he predestined me. He chose me before the foundation of the earth. He called me by my name. In my mother's womb, he knew me then. And everything that I went through in my life had to happen for that very moment. And guys, let me tell you, it has been quite a ride. I am not perfect. I haven't been perfect. I'm not going to be perfect, but he has been there. He has been faithful. He has been slow to anger. He has been merciful. His forgiveness and his grace has no limits. Like, in my life, he has been good. And it hasn't been easy. I've suffered. I have lost, I had a miscarriage when I was 21. I lost my dad. My husband lost his dad. We struggled financially for years. We struggled in our marriage. I remember Adrian was one of my biggest struggles because he didn't believe when I believed. He didn't want to know anything about that. And I suffered for years. And I remember I would go to church and pray for him. He wouldn't want to go to church with me. He wouldn't want to believe. he was in the music industry, and he just wanted to do whatever he wanted to do, and I suffered a lot. But I prayed, and I never gave up, and I believed God. I believed God when he told me that as of me and my house, we will be saved. I believe that with all my heart. And I just want to say, like, now that I look back into my life and I look back at all my struggles, I believe that in every season God was faithful. In every season he taught me something. And if you find yourself in a place in your life where it's like a loop, it's because you need to understand the process. You need to stop resisting God's work and God's work in your life. Let me tell you one thing about God that I have learned. He will not fail you. This is not like school. You take a test, you fail, that's it. No. He will make you take the test over and over and over and over again until you understand. So you and me, we are the ones that prolong our process. We are the ones that prolong our process. We are the ones that prolong our suffering. Like the Israelites. The Israelites were wandering in the desert for 40 years. It was going to take them way less for them to get to the promised land. But because they complained, because they didn't understand, because they rebelled against Christ, because they made idols, they did not inherit the promised land. And I take that in me, and I'm like, God, everything that I went through, every struggle, and everything that I still go through, because life is hard. And for a long time, I believed the lie that coming to Christ was the end of suffering. Not on this earth. Coming to Christ is a way of life that's going to take you to eternity. But I rather do life with God here than without God. Because the miracles that I've experienced, the miracles in my marriage that I experienced, God turned my husband around completely. He did. He did. I saw him pull him out of something and bring him into something else for our good. And let me tell you, whatever struggle you go through, if you feel like you never received anything from God, it's a lie from the pit of hell. Because God does not want any of us to perish. He's loving kindness. He's so merciful. He is slow to anger. Do you know that we, with the things that we've done, we deserve, we deserve to die. We deserve to just be gone. But because he's so slow to anger, like a lot of times I hear people say, well, you know what? God is so merciful to other people who do all these things, and they're bad people and they hurt, and because it's not that he's not punishing, or that he's not punishing the sin or the evil of other people, but because he doesn't want anyone to perish. He's slow to anger for our good. He's slow to anger. So I'm sure many of you have had probably worse things that I went through in life. Or maybe you can relate with me, being a rebellious child, not talking to your parents, divorced parents. Maybe you lost your mom or your dad. Maybe you had miscarriages. Maybe you carry a lot of things that you've never told anyone before, but there is hope. Because when I gave my life to Christ, in that moment, yes, that's your first love, but throughout this years, it's been like 13 years, he has shown me his faithfulness. That's the equity. I have built equity in God. Yeah, just like when you buy a home and you get all this equity, well, my faith is the equity. Like, I know that I have been building enough equity, building enough faith for me to know when the seasons of winter comes, when everything dies, when there's seasons of uncertainty, seasons of anxiety, of loss, I know that God is faithful enough. And I know that he didn't promise me that everything was going to be great. He told me, in this world you will have trouble, but he says, cheer up, I have overcome the world. And that is the promise that we have in God, that if you give your life to Christ, that if you confess with your mouth, he is faithful enough to cleanse you from all unrighteousness and to forgive you. And guys, he forgave me. He forgave me, and he still forgives me, because I still make mistakes every single day. I have made so many mistakes in my life, and his grace has been just so great. So great. And whatever it is that you're going through in life, whatever struggles you're going through, don't give up. Don't give up in God. Don't give up in the promise that he has made. He's good. He's faithful. He can change people. He changes people. I know we hear that, oh, people don't change, they get... No. He changes people. He changed me. He's changed my husband. He's changed people in my life that I've seen to become another person. God can do the miracle. He can change your finances. He can change your marriage. He can change that inconvert husband or wife. He can change those kids that are driving you crazy. Change me. I'm sure my mom suffers so much. Now that I'm a mother, and I think of, if Aliyah would ever do something like that to me, it will hurt me. It will hurt me. It will break me into pieces. Because now that I'm a mother, I understand that everything that we do is for their good, even though they don't feel like it's for their good. Because that's exactly how God is with us. Most of the time, I don't understand, God, why are you making me go through this? Why are you allowing these things in my life? And God is like, my child, I know that it sucks right now, but I see a little further than you. Like, I'm the end already. See, we don't have that, we don't have that power that God has, but we know as parents, if you continue on this road, it's not going to end up good for you. So we try to stop or try to help our kids not to make those mistakes, because we know what's ahead. God is the same way with us. And just like our kids, they dislike us for a moment, or they get angry for a moment, they throw tantrums for a moment, we do the same thing with the Lord. But at the end, he works everything for our good. I can sit here today and tell you that he has worked everything for my good. Every suffering, my dad's death, my mom and my dad's divorce, my miscarriage. With my miscarriage, because I know this is a topic that I'm pretty sure a lot of women go through. I didn't understand why. And I suffered. And I questioned God, and I said, but the only thing that I did say when I questioned, I didn't question him like, why God, or I was angry at him. I understood that there was a purpose for everything. But the only thing that I said is, whenever you decide that it's time for me to become a mother, I just pray that you don't let me suffer like I did. And he did it just like that. 8 years later, I was pregnant with Aliyah. And it was wonderful. And she has been wonderful. And God gave me that promise. He's like, I don't know why he did it. I might never know. I might know one day. I don't know. But I know that in those 8 years that I waited, that I saw other people get pregnant, that I saw other people had gender reveals, that I saw other people have their miracle babies, I was suffering, and I was praying, and I was asking. And he gave her to me. In the right time, in his time, he gave her to me. When I needed her the most, actually. When I needed her the most, he gave her to me. So don't give up. Believe, and use everything that, all those ashes, all those bad situations in your life, all the things that didn't work out, he's working everything for your good. I know it doesn't feel like it. Trust me, I have cried, I have yelled, I have been silent, but I cannot sit here and tell you it was wasted. It was not. It has made me become the person that I am today, mentally, spiritually, physically, and it has made me stronger, and it has built the faith and the equity, the faith that I need to believe and to trust in him. And it's not easy. It's not easy. He never said it was going to be easy. It wasn't easy for him. It wasn't easy for God when he was dying on that cross. But he did it because he knew that joy comes in the morning. If you enjoyed this time with me here, and I just want to leave you with that. I pray that whatever hurt you, I pray that whatever happened to you in your past, you can overcome it. I pray that you don't let the devil steal, destroy anything that you are trying to build now. Your parents divorce, you break that generational curse on you, and you treat your marriage well, and you cherish your marriage, and you protect it against all the darts of the devil. I pray that if you had a miscarriage and God gave you that miracle baby, you can be the best mother. You can be the most amazing mother. That if you didn't have a good mom or a good dad, you can be that good mom and good dad for your kids. I pray that every generation occurs, anything that was meant to destroy you, I pray that in the name of Jesus, that no weapon formed against you will prosper. No weapon formed against you will prosper. See, I learned that. Remember this. The weapon is formed. It says, no weapon formed against you will prosper. That doesn't mean that the weapon has not been formed. It just means that it won't prosper against you. I learned that. Because the weapon will be formed. But it will not prosper against you. It has to go through God's hands first. So I leave you with that. I love you guys. Have a beautiful week in the name of Jesus.